All right, everybody, it's 7:05. We're holding steady at a strong 137 participants. And I am going to kick things off. So who the heck am I? I am Natalie Winkelfoos, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being the athletics director at Oberlin College. So on behalf of our student athletes, our staff, the Heisman Club, President Ambar, and the Presidential Initiative on Racial Equality and Diversity, it is my incredible honor to welcome some incredible humans doing some incredible work through the always powerful platform of sport. So what does the WNBA and Oberlin? Well, for starters, the WNBA has strong female leadership, as does Oberlin College. And both Oberlin and the WNBA are dripping with social justice swagger and the desire to be driving forces of change for equity and inclusion. In President Ambar's charge to the commission, she wrote, "The work of dismantling the vestiges of white supremacy, anti-Black policies, and gender inequality has long been embedded in the promise of Oberlin College. This work in the 21st century, however, looks different than it did in 1833. The work of this commission, in part, will help Oberlin lead in a moment critical to higher education and to the nation. This work is now more critical than ever as we look both internally and externally. Our campus community is driven by Oberlin's unique history of first, and its early progressivism compels us and is one of the many reasons Oberlin is held in high regard across academia to this day. As an athletics department, we are invested in helping build the skills necessary to transform our communities where people are seen, heard, valued, cared for, and respected as their full selves. We can point to and speak loudly and proudly of the leadership and activism of our current and former student athletes. But today we know there is more we can do to become a more just athletic department in a time of social change. A special shout out to the founders and current members of our Black student athlete group, especially Kofi and Malika, for their leadership, conversation, and collaboration. Together, we are rising. And everyone here tonight and beyond have all been inspired by the players and personnel of the WNBA. No league was more essential to the social justice movement in 2020 than the WNBA. It was the first league to show the kind of collective, meaningful action for racial justice. The players and coaches have paved the way for the movement we are seeing today within all of professional sports. So let's take a quick break, watch a video, and hear from some of the WNBA players themselves.
Remember when it was just an idea and a dream, and then now we're here, like...
It has been hard, but at the same time, I feel like we're built for it. WNBA has been in front of it for a long time.
Now people are seeing our work. You're also playing for a bigger purpose. Even though you're out there playing basketball, you have Breonna Taylor's name on our back of our uniforms. We have the Black Lives Matter on the court.
People don't realize the difference between like activism, activists, and organizers, and like we're organizers. Activism is like bringing light to an issue, talking about it. Like it's not fluff, but it's like, you know, raise awareness, like you should vote. Organizing is that shirt. Like organizing is getting behind a candidate. Organizing is, hey, texting, talking about the anthem, y'all coming out, you staying in, let's do this. Like organizing is hard effing work. Like there's a reason people don't sign up to be organizers.
All of our voices are needed in this fight. But tonight, Oberlin College, an institution with intense energy and creativity, will be giving credit where credit is due and learning from the WNBA, who have been leading for years. Moderating this discussion for us tonight is the fabulous Kathleen Kunkler. Kathleen is currently a senior vice president and financial advisor and a global sports and entertainment director for Morgan Stanley. Using her passion for sports and finance, she's built a business that includes some of the top women in the sports industry. Kathleen is a leader in the nonprofit world, giving of her time, talents, and treasures to organizations that advocate for those whose voices need amplified. Put simply, this woman is a fierce champion for all that is good in this world, a true Obi in spirit. She was also a dual sport athlete at Williams Woods University, but now enjoys performing on the stage with her band. I've seen this woman in action. It's a joyful experience, especially when she belts out some Tina Turner. Kathleen Kunkler, thank you for being you, and thank you for joining our Oberlin team tonight. The mic is hot, and the Zoom room is yours to introduce our game-changing guests.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Oberlin. Thank you. It's an honor to be here about such an important topic. It's on everybody's minds on a daily basis. So having this conversation tonight with our guest, who you will meet momentarily, is just pretty special. It's incredible, as Natalie said. First, I want to introduce Avi Story. He's the Connecticut Sun's Director of Player Development. And as you hear a little bit more about what he has done, not just doing that, but in his side gigs, he's making an impact all over the country. Right now, he builds out robust resources for the players on and off the court. Before joining the Suns, he served as an assistant coach with the Chicago Sky. He played college hoops at University of Illinois and Arizona State. He had a solid NBA career internationally, as well as here with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Washington Wizards, and the New Jersey Nets. So the most important thing, besides all of the athletic playing, is what he has done in the nonprofit world. He started a group called Power Up with Pros, which is a program to increase physical activity, nutritional knowledge, and goal setting in elementary school children. He was just talking about this before the program started. He's in multiple states. I mean, he's a game changer with these young kids. He also is the founder of Storytime, which provides programming on the basketball game's fundamentals while instilling important commitment to teamwork, character, and sportsmanship. Welcome, Avi.
Hey everyone.
Hey, right on.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. Well, let's introduce our other special guest. Essence Carson had a unbelievable career at Rutgers University. She was the 7th overall pick taken by the New York Liberty. She has had a 13-year career in the WNBA, winning a championship for the LA Sparks in 2016. She played for the Phoenix Mercury, the Washington Mystics, and now is with the Connecticut Sun. She's an amazing and remarkable human being. What drew me when I looked at this bio is that she's a classically trained pianist. She plays the saxophone. She plays the electric guitar and the drums. She went to the Rosa Parks Fine Arts School in high school. It's where she graduated from. And I just can't wait to hear a little bit more about your story. So welcome, Essence. And we got a jam, girl. We got a jam.
Thanks for having me. And yes, we do have to have a jam session sometime soon.
I mean, we got to make this happen. We sell tickets. We could make some,
Oh yeah,
right.
For sure.
All right. Well, anyway, thanks you two. I've got a lot of questions. I've got a lot of data. You would think I was calling a game here. But no, I loved hearing about just what you do outside of the basketball court. It's impressive. So let's talk about what we're gathered here for. So the WNBA in their bubble led this social justice movement in the wake of George Floyd's, Breonna Taylor's passings. What I'd like you both to comment on is what were the genesis of this social movement within the league, but what kind of converted these conversations to actions? So Avi, why don't you start and then we'll let Essence tag on there.
I guess it started with me, obviously, with George Floyd, and even before. Again, I'm an inner city kid from Chicago. I think about the first time I realized I was Black. And that was very difficult for me. Very young, Chicago, police officer giving me just all kind of issues, just not understanding why. In prep school, same thing. I went to prep school in New Hampshire. Again, only Black kid in this whole entire area, but he gives me beef. And then adding all the way up to this, it was very emotional for me. I'm 43 years old, and I think I've faced a lot of different things throughout my life. But once all of this happened, this was a very, very emotional time for me. I can feel it stirring up right now. And just thinking about going into the bubble and thinking about our season was definitely the last thing I was thinking about. I have a 12-year-old daughter, thinking about how to explain and how to help her understand where my tears were coming from. Just a lot of different emotions. And once it was decided that we were having a season and we we're going down to Florida, didn't want any parts of it at all. Just for one, COVID, not knowing what our season really looks like in a place that we've never been before. It was all difficult, but one of the biggest takes from that bubble experience, we were all safe. I felt safe. I felt safe enough to bring my daughter with me. But again, back to your point and your question, I thought it was very difficult for me, and just for me as a person, a Black man. It was overall overwhelming, as I still think about all of that emotion and all that leading up to it, and it's still to this day what's going on in our world. It's great that it's all being videoed. It was always going on. It's just being recorded now. Everybody had iPhones, or not just iPhones. They've got phones that they can record. So again, it's just great that things are coming out now. It's still just very difficult to see them and experience it still as if I'm George Floyd. I think about all those scenarios. So it's very difficult. But again, I'm really grateful that I'm in a space right now working with women's basketball, and to be able to be in such a great area with women and being able to talk about these things, and they don't shy away at all. And I'm grateful for that. Great, thanks.
Dovetail on what he said, and like I said, I want to know about like the genesis of this. What drew, like what Avi just said, coming in there and y'all deciding, okay, we got to do something.
Right. Wow. Me personally, I guess we'll start there. Just as Avi said, man, 2020 was definitely a very trying year from beginning to end. But that wasn't the starting point, right? I've lived in this skin my entire life. So the Black experience that Avi just briefly touched on has been something that, as inspirational as it could seem or could be, it has definitely at times would seem like a burden, right? Because sometimes you face issues or you find yourself in these encounters or in these experiences that you can't really pinpoint or explain why they happen. And having to, navigate through life, trying to understand certain things. And then you finally come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe it's just because of the skin I'm in, right? So having that experience in itself, and then watching the terrors that are continuously happening to our Black and brown communities, it was like a tipping point. And, the WNBA, has never, as players, as a collective group, we've never shied away from standing up and trying to stand on the front lines and using our platform to the best of our ability. And that wasn't going to change in 2020. And as you saw just out in society, things came to a head. It's like when the oppressed gets just tired of being tired. Mm-hmm. And we would be a fool to ignore what was going on around us, right? So it only seemed right to continue to be a champion for change. And I guess I can speak for the league as a whole on the player side that enough was enough, and that we committed to using our platform for social change, for social justice. And we pretty much said, hey, this isn't going to happen. The season won't happen unless we're able to leverage what we do have in order to influence things for the better, right? And you know, it took some time organizing everything, getting it together. But as you saw, the rollout of everything throughout the course of the season, I mean, it was as emotionally tiring as it was. It still was a great thing to see and a great thing to be a part of.
It's awesome.
And yeah, so that's pretty much how it came down to it. It was almost like an ultimatum, like, hey, we're not going to play if we're not able to use this platform. So,
well, I mean, we've all heard that if you've got a platform, use it. And because too many people that have the opportunity to have a platform don't use it. So, you know, I love that. And I watched it, and we all kind of watched this momentum that, you know, happened just in your league. One of the things I want to ask Avi, and then I'm going to come back, but Avi, from top down, where did the conversations go or evolve? Was this the evolution of this social justice movement? Was it from the ground floor being the players, and where did y'all meet in the middle? You know, the top and the coaches and the players. Like, how was that conversation?
It's a players' league. We are in a sports, and it's very different from the corporate world. Sports players run this league, period. Okay. And it's their league. They've done the dirty work. They've, go through ACL tears, all those different things. This is their league. So they came with all the different things that they thought was important to talk about. And as coaches, as a former player, I'm about all of it, because I've experienced and I know what those experiences are like for them. And it just started with that. And then from the league. And again, the league has been a huge support of what these women want and what they think that is important for them. And I think that is the only way and the best way to go about doing
it. I want you to follow up with that, but this is a good time to maybe talk about the evolution. I mean, it was, and the impetus were these deaths of these individuals, but then how you spoke of it, it was very organic with all of you. So talk a little bit about the Social Justice Committee or the Social Justice Council, how and those conversations to kind of from, okay, we've got this thing that we've got a platform, and now we've got this thing we need to do. How was the Social Justice Council? How did that come about? Who's on it? How did, speak a little of that? Because what I want to try to get to is, you've got this Play-Doh of activism. How did you build what you have now?
Man, like you said, everything came together organically, right? So when there's a need, you try to supply for that, right? You try to supplement that. And there was a need for this council. When you have so many players voicing their concerns or, the discourse with everything that's going on, and, we have these demands, it's not enough to just, voice those through the Players Association, right? You need something that's a little more specific, a little bit that's going to focus, that has a hyper focus on the issue at hand. And pulling together the players for the council, you want them to represent everyone, right? It's not always going to be all of the superstars. It's not going to be everyone from a certain region of the country or from a certain team. You want this to be reflective of the community. And our council definitely is reflective of that. You get people from all different walks of life. You get people that aren't only from the United States, but that are from all over the world, because these experiences aren't only confined to the borders of America. They happen all around the world. So it was very important, very valuable, and imperative to get those people to represent each parts of those communities. So as you said, it was just definitely very organic, and it definitely was a need. And having that hyper focus was able to help us build that rollout that we had across the entire season, and even into now, where we are continuing to demand change.
Awesome. I want to ask you one more question. So historically, Black women have been somewhat forgotten in the fight for justice because it's typically Black males. And given that the WNBA dedicated their entire season really to the Say Her Name initiative, and again, this goes back to the platform, what does it mean to you personally to be on that platform, to be the woman that is now using her platform for change for Black women that historically, like I said, they're not the ones that are doing it?
I mean, I guess, excuse my language, but it means a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't really focus or concentrate on making history, right?
Right.
That's not what you really focus on. You focus on change right. in the right direction.
Right.
So if it happens to fall on the right side of history, then so be it. I'm all for it. But we understand and we look at what's happening to our communities and how it's affecting not only this generation, but how it can affect the next generation and those that come after that, right? And if you even take a second to even just cycle back and think about history and how long we have been going through this, it has gotten to a point where enough is just enough. And there needs to be change. And you can't be afraid of losing something or sacrificing something in order to make sure that there's a better tomorrow. So it does mean a lot. And we may not be able to see everything come to fruition, tomorrow, today, or even next week. But to be a part of the movement that's helping put one foot in front of the other so that you can continue to move forward feels great. It feels like you have a purpose. And everyone always talks about finding their purpose throughout life, on their life journey. Everyone is always trying to figure that out. What better time is it than to be on the right side of things?
Yeah.
The right side of humanity. This is not a political issue, right? This is a human rights issue. And of course, there are different facets of it that might dive into the, political structure of things, right? But the basis of this is human rights. You can refer to it as civil rights, if whatever you may want to call it, but it's the basic fundamental human rights issue. Right. We're humans too. And it's a shame that we're still having this conversation well over 400 years later. But here we are. And I'm not going to be the one that's going to sit here and allow the conversation to die on my watch.
Well, God love you, and thank you. A little sidestep here. I want to talk about the Atlanta Dream and just a little, when the owner, Kelly Loeffler, I guess she still is the owner, when she was at that time the incumbent senator, and the whole country really hadn't heard of her until she commented on the WNBA team named the Dream, part of the Martin Luther King speech. So she got her 15 minutes of fame when she labeled the movement as Marxist and a champion of violence. I'd love to hear, Avi or you comment on, whether it was the Social Justice Council, but you were in the, kind of the midst of this. The league had started. So what were the conversations around that moment and an owner of a team making those kinds of comments?
Oh, okay. I can take it. I mean, from the player side, I've had my own experiences with things that with things that people say, and so I couldn't say I was in disbelief, right? Because we can look out the window, look outside, look on our phones or television, and you know what's going on, and you know what kind of people exist, right? I guess I was a little perturbed with her understanding of what Marxism is. All right. And exactly. Right.
There is that.
Yeah. So that we can start there, right? We don't even have to dip into people's morals, right? We can just start there. The simple definition, right? Clearly, there's no understanding of that. But I digress. But what I was more impressed with was the way that the Atlanta Dream came together and stood together. And although the owner is in a position of authority, what's wrong is wrong. And they were able to stand together on the preface of what we were standing together on throughout the entire season. It's just that now they have something that they have to deal with directly. And they didn't stand down, and they did it in a very professional way. And I commend them for that. You know, there's no room. There's no room for any of that. And the moment that you turn a blind eye or turn your cheek to that is the moment you say it's okay. Right. And again, I have to commend them for that. And, you know, as a player that is part of a league that stands for something, that stands for everyone, it meant a lot. And again, I applaud them. You know, they're champions in their own right.
Well, I want to ask you another question before I'm going to go back to Avi, but I want to ask you a difficult question. And it's difficult for me to even say the words, and I'm going to quote something, and it's hard. In April of 2007, and you know what I'm going to talk about, Don Imus. And for those of you that are watching that do not know Don Imus, he was a shock jock, a radio shock jock, who was a morning host of, actually it was on MSNBC, which now you look at MSNBC, it looks a little different. And he referred to your team at Rutgers, and it makes me cringe to say that I'm quoting something. So they referred to the women's basketball team as nappy-headed hoes. And I apologize to you for even saying it, and I apologize that even happened. You were the team captain. So how did you lead the team at that moment? And I'd love to know what your coach, and I can only imagine, because I don't know her personally, but I know who she is. And so give me just a couple minutes on that moment in your life. You're a young woman, you're the leader of the team, you're the captain of the team, and this happened. So take it away.
Man, just thinking back to that moment, I remember when, it was Stacy Bram. She came to me. We just had that type of relationship where we could just communicate freely, and she was just amazing. She worked, closely with the team during her time there at Rutgers. She mentioned something about someone saying something on the radio, or a shock jock saying something, and at that time we had just came back from the national championship game, and so we had a warm welcome from everyone, the fire department, the coming in on the charter plane. So everything as a player, you were just soaking in that experience. And by the time we got back to the gym, where they just had a welcoming squad there, she pulls me over to the side and is just like, "E, did you hear what happened?" And I'm just like, "No, like, what are you talking about?" So then she goes on to say what this guy says. This guy, that's his name, is this guy.
You don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. And At first I didn't really, believe her, because I couldn't really fathom that someone would actually say that on a nationally syndicated show, right? And it will be okay. So I was just like, no, this didn't happen. But then I paused for a second, and she was just looking at me, and I'm like, she's serious. And I was just like, wow. And before you know it, we were all meeting with Coach in her office. And, Coach Stringer, she has been on the front lines her entire career. So there was no way that she was going to let this one, slide by at all. By the time we got there, we all really began to let everything soak in and really began to understand what just happened. Immediately coming down from the high of the national championship game, immediately. And at that, we were getting so many different press requests that, they just thought it was a good idea just to have one press conference so that the team, we were young, so that we wouldn't be overwhelmed. Of course, we still had to go to class and everything. So we didn't really want to shake up the infrastructure so much that everyone gets out of whack and they can't really finish, the year strong, stuff like that. So we decided to have a press conference, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. We're used to, press conferences. I'm thinking that it's just going to be Coach Stringer talking, and that's it, because she's always on the front lines. It was at that moment that she chose me, and I was just like, oh no. People that knew me way back when, they could tell you that I was extremely quiet, extremely introverted, and she chose me. So at that moment, I knew that, okay, this is something huge. I have to make sure that, I have a understanding of everything that's going on, understanding of how everyone feels here, not only myself, but how does each of my sisters feel, right? Doesn't matter if they're not Black, right? So just looking around the room and doing a temperature check and everything, I was finally able to write the words down that I, eventually was able to share with the country. It was tough, it was extremely tough. The questions that were thrown our way, the amount of time that was demanded, it was the early wake ups. Of course, you're used to waking up and going into the gym and putting up shots and exerting physical, energy. But it's different when you have to get up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to go, do a talk show for CNN or with
talking about something that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that there's so many viewers that are watching you and listening to you, whether they're waiting for you to make a mistake and trip up or whether they're cheering you on. You're going to have, that duality of it all there. So, and I was young, I'm just trying to enjoy life. And it was quite the experience. But what I learned from it all is that it doesn't matter if you're afraid. That's a normal thing. What matters is that what do you do to overcome that feeling of fear in order to use your voice the way you should use it? Because you're not only using it for yourself, you're using it for all the people that aren't heard, right? All the people that people blatantly ignore, right? So here's your moment to represent and to speak for them. And when you do it, make sure you do it in such a way that it will never be forgotten, right? Never be forgotten, and that it will eventually lead to some change. So yeah, it was quite the experience.
I was hesitant in asking the question, and it came from my own discomfort, just saying those words. So I applaud you, and you clearly were shaped by that moment to become who you are today. And that's a good thing for all of us. Avi, you're a man in a woman's space, and we're we're running a little bit out of time. So I know there's a lot of questions that I want to ask, and a few from some student athletes, and then we have questions coming in. But Avi, you're a man in a woman's space. So, you know, what does that feel like? But also, what do you, as a player development and a scout, it's a twofold question. What are the key attributes you see in an athlete? And I'm asking this because there's a lot of student athletes listening. So, you know, what are the things that you see are most important in an athlete if you're scouting and developing the young women that you're coaching now? But also, like, being a man in a woman's space, what does that feel like? And how do you maneuver the waters and do it well? Clearly you're doing it well.
Yeah. That's a great question. And you guys prepped us with some of these questions, and I had to sit for a while.
I didn't know that.
And I had to sit on that for a bit, as that has been something that I really have taken on with such great responsibility, and just I'm so honored to be able to be in a space like that I am now, and working with these women. Again, you said a little bit about my story. Former NBA player, played overseas, doggy dog world. Like, I'm a guy of guys, you know? So I was very rough around the edges, which I still am. It's just my DNA. But it was an honor to be able to work with my first WNBA team, which was the Washington Mystics, and to be able to talk to these women and to really understand the game of basketball, no matter who's playing it, is still basketball. Mm-hmm. And before getting into this space, it was really difficult for me to really understand, like, oh, how do I coach them? How do I see see if they can play or not? Like, it's all the same. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It's the same. So they have taught me so much throughout the years of being in this sport, being on the women's side, being a player, yes, but then just being able to understand and find ways to communicate. Really just, you know, it's an emotional sport. Really finding the time to really work on communicating in the best way possible. Really trying to find ways to critique the game in the way that I see it. It's been a great experience, and I'm still learning, and it's been an honor. Again, it's that bubble experience has been completely eye-opening for me, but it's been great.
Good. I want to toss a couple questions out that we got ahead of time from some of the Black student athletes. And either one of you can answer this. What advice would you give current Black student athletes of color, Black student athletes, for pushing for change? I mean, you were thrown into the fire, at that moment. But what would you give young student athletes of color advice to get involved, and how do you push it?
Man, one, don't stand down, right? Two, just make sure you're well versed, right? Because the one thing that you're always going to be challenged with is, well, how much do you know about this? All right. So you always want to make sure that you're prepared in that sense. And you have to understand that sometimes it's going to take a sacrifice. You can't be afraid of that, right? It doesn't mean that the sacrifice is going to be something bad. It doesn't mean that. Just you have to expect that sometimes, you know, things are give and take. Sometimes, you know, you have to give more, and understand that you are fighting for a better tomorrow, not only as a Black athlete, but as a Black person. And we have already transcended so many barriers as athletes, as elite athletes. It's you have that ability innately to definitely initiate change. You have that. You have the ability to overcome and to persevere, and you have to show others that it's possible for them to do the same thing. So don't be afraid of the commitment. Don't be afraid of the sacrifice. Your voice matters, even if sometimes you feel like you're not heard.
Yeah.
Got it.
Piggyback on that. I just remember all of my experiences as athletes through injuries. It built character. When times you didn't play and your coach didn't play you, all the time you said all the words all under your breath on what that experience was and just how he wasn't playing or she wasn't playing me. It just builds you as a person. It builds you stronger to deal with any kind of scenario or situation you face in your life. So all your student athletes, again, embrace that. You're going to come through all kinds of issues throughout life. And I think athletics and sports builds character and builds you to go through those experiences in your life with the utmost confidence and do not shy away from that.
Got it. I mean, it's awesome. Another question, Essence, while you were playing and you were addressing the social justice issues, were you torn about playing? I mean, how did you stay focused to play while a normal human reaction might be being distracted from all of the noise of all of the social injustice going on?
Mm-hmm. Well, for myself, I've always been able to focus on multiple things at once, whether it's basketball, music, and whatever. So for me, it wasn't that difficult. But what I can say is that some of my counterparts did struggle with that. And that's to be expected, that feeling that it was almost like a burden to them, that they weren't able to be outside of the bubble and out there demonstrating or even out there demonstrating and being physically on the front lines, right? A lot of people did struggle with that. But in turn, myself, I understood that I might not be physically present, but, at those demonstrations and things like that. But I was trying to be more creative and more innovative and a little more forward thinking in how I can, make change from afar. But you're really never afar because you're always in this skin. You're always in this fight, right? So what other ways can we think of or come up with that can be just as impactful? So, that's what led us to really, really use our platform this year and the way that we did and the manner in which we did. So I was okay with that, and again, so many people did struggle with it. And what we would do is that we would sometimes have these meetings. We'd had instances where we would meet, whether it was, every few weeks, where we would have conversations surrounding what was going on the outside, or whether we sit down with some of the mothers of the slain, or whether we sit down with some of those policymakers or those that are trying to inject change. So those things were, we came up with those things in order to create some level of comfort for those that did really struggle.
Awesome. Another question, then I'm going to ask E one more question, and then we're going to go to the Q&A. And I think I saw up here, we're going to run a little long with the Q&A. If your guys are good to stick around a couple more minutes, got anywhere to go? We're going to move to your music and what inspires your music. You have lyrics where you talk about social justice. Some of your tracks mention voting, take a knee, police sirens, gun violence, and Eric Garner's final words. I can't breathe. Can you share about your inspiration and weaving your music into social justice and vice versa?
Oh yeah, for sure. Wow, I've studied so many different genres of music, but my favorite genre will always be hip hop. I fell in love with hip hop at a very early age, and those that kind of understand the history of hip hop and rap, you understand that it's the art of storytelling. And where it was born in the South Bronx. And a lot of those lyrics at that time, it was just a reflection of what was going on in my heart. So everything that I write about is going to be an experience of my own or experience that I watch someone else go through, right? So there's going to be reflective of society. It's going to be reflective of what's going on. That's art. Art imitates life, right? So that's exactly where I draw inspiration from. I try to be as authentic as possible because you want things to evoke emotion. Because when you evoke emotion, then it most likely will lead to action, and then when you take action, it will most likely lead to change. So there is a chain of command here. There's an order of operations. There's a workflow here. So I always want to make sure that I'm intentional with what I'm doing and what I'm saying.
Awesome. Thank you. Are we good to go to the Q&A? Is everybody good with this? I've got a few questions up here. This comes from Miriam Douglas. Are white players and other members of the organization who identify as white asked to have a role as participants in or allies of the movement?
Yes. I mean, I don't want people to feel that this is an anti-white movement. This is not what that is, right? And a lot of times it's often confused, as to align with that, and it's not. Since even in the '60s, when you look at some of those some of the footage, the video footage, or you see some of the pictures, there are white people on those front lines marching behind Dr. King, right? So we understand that it's not only us that has to band together. And when I say us, the Black and Brown community, we do need allies to push this forward, to continue this movement, to create change. But if only a certain section, a certain facet of society moves forward, then you look at the majority and they're not moving. So it looks like, well, what's the point, right? What is the point if the majority doesn't see what's going on or feel moved by what's going on or see that there are injustices or even equates them to injustices, right? So yes, we need allies. Yes, we will always ask you to participate, and you shouldn't feel left out, right? Hey, you can come sit next to me. We can hold hands and all that, as long as we're moving towards the right, moving in the right direction.
Got it. All right. Go ahead, Avi.
I 100% agree with Essence in that, and I'm just going to go a little deeper than that. This movement, Black Lives Matter, just really just equality for all people. It cannot happen without the support of the majority. It can't. So I really challenge the student athletes that are on this to really not only, you have a very unique situation where you blood, sweat, tears, all of the emotions with your athletes and with Black players or anybody of any other race other than white. Like, you really have a unique opportunity to really get to know each other. And that's a really unique opportunity for you all to have with each other, to understand and ask questions that are very uncomfortable, or even for the first time you ever thought that you even ask personal questions about someone's family or race or things that just doesn't make sense to you at all. And you need to find a place or find something in you to be comfortable enough to ask those questions, because they're very important to ask. You won't know if they don't make sense until you actually ask them. So get off your sympathy or just whatever you feel emotionally or just within yourself to don't think it's an important question to ask. It probably most of the time is.
Got it. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. We've got a few minutes left. Here's an interesting one. Either one of you, I think Avi, as a former NBA player, this is from an alum. Are there differences in the way, broadly speaking, that the WNBA and NBA players are prepared along the journey to deal with life? Are there differences in the ways the WNBA and NBA leagues and individual teams invest in personal development and emotional support? Right up your alley, Avi. And specifically, he said, I'm thinking about the human dignity and larger potential of players as opposed to their treatment as perishable commodities after the final buzzer sounds. And this was from a 1979 alum.
That's a great question. I am in this space as the director of player development for a reason. I am a former player, and the resources that the NBA has that is different or don't have necessarily on the women's side will be changing through me. I am here to make change. I am here to put all the opportunities in front of our ladies just as the same on the men's side. The resources on the men's side and why they're different is the resources are just endless.
Whoa, Tiger.
Yeah.
You're passionate about this. It's awesome.
Yeah, I am. It means a lot to me because, again, it gets back to the whole point of how on the men's side, the resources are endless because the money is there. On the women's side, it's not the same, but that doesn't mean the resources shouldn't be there. So one of the things that the WNBA has really put a lot of effort is in player development. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be really tipping my hat on and really trying to start, not just with Connecticut Sun, but every WNBA team, which is 12 total, to implement and have someone in this position to be able to support our ladies in a way that they need. And as for when the ball is bounced and you're done playing, these are the things that I think that are very important for our ladies to understand. Take advantage of the resources that you have now. So when the ball is done, when you're done bouncing the ball, you know exactly where you're going after you're done. Because it's a period that I suffered once I was done playing. I had a cushion, but it was 2 years before I figured out what the hell I want to do with the rest of my life. And that was very difficult. So I want to really alleviate that 2 years or a few months for our ladies to know what they want to do once they're done playing the game.
Awesome. Another question. I think we'll do two more, and that should take us to the top of the hour. This is such a good one. And why is it that the WNBA led the way in social justice issues in a way that the NBA did not, and that other women's sports leagues didn't necessarily do? But why is the WNBA such an incubator? I love that word, incubator of activism.
Man, there's so many different ways to answer that. I'm sure Avi can give, the
and Ben put that in. Ben did. Ben. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Oh man, I mean, if you want to just go back in history, Black women have been on the front lines so much, right? Whether we're recognized for it or not. And, playing in a league that is majority women of color, to me, it was just bound to happen. And then we find ourselves with like-minded people that are a little more forward-thinking, people that are a little less afraid of taking risk there. We are, that community. If you want to, talk about whether it's the gender pay gap, whether, Avi just touched on the resources that we don't have. And of course, we're making huge strides, but it's like you have to fight, tooth and nail for every single thing that we get in this league, right? So everything that we do have at this point, rightfully so, and we know that we deserve more. So if we're going to fight in that way, right, for ourselves, I mean, it's only right that we continue to fight for those that sometimes seem like they can't fight for themselves. And we collectively believe that, the reward is greater than the risk, and it's almost like, hey, look, we already, trying to fight over scraps on our side. I mean, it's not really much to lose in comparison to what everyone else on the outside is, in our communities are losing. So I just think it's a collective stance, that, and these are just individuals that really believe in some of the same things. And we understand that unity is better than being divisive.
Got it. Go ahead, Avi.
Well,
Yeah.
It's from being on the men's side and playing and seeing what these women do now. The women by far light years ahead of us as men, and when being able to open up, be vulnerable, all those different things that I started out by saying how emotional it was. I couldn't have said that when I was playing in the NBA, how emotional I was about something. It just doesn't happen. That is definitely changing now. That is definitely changing now. But the women have been on the forefront forever, eons, in the beginning of time, and the way they really support each other. And that's a simple question, simple answer right there for it.
Got it. Avi, I look at what you're doing outside of Connecticut Sun and your Power Pros and your programs for the kids. And, that is such a game changer and is going to be, impactful for so many young kids out there. And that I can see, that's where your passion is. But I want to ask, this was another question that came into us. Essence, and this is kind of my final question, and then I'm going to wrap it up and let you guys have a couple seconds to say your last piece. But Essence, what's in store for you next?
Wow, what's next? I mean, right now I do work at Motown Records. I've been actually working in the music industry since 2017, where I work there, on the music side simultaneously with basketball side. It's been a great experience thus far. So,
right.
I mean, once basketball is, completely done, I'll just go ahead and, transition to the industry full time.
Awesome.
But again, just learning how to balance both has been an amazing experience. Being able to contribute on, in both ways, whether it's to the, sports side or whether it's to the, on the music side, has been tremendous. And being able to enact change through two different avenues has been very, very satisfying. But I know that it's not done. So, I'll be somewhere in music.
Right on. Avi, a few closing words for us before I'm going to give it to you and then let E say a couple things. Then I'll toss it to Natalie to close it out.
Yeah. To my student athletes, one of the biggest things that I have been able to see after playing that have really taken me to the next level of my life, find time to meditate. Find time to build yourself up, find time for yourself. It's a lot of things that are pulling you, your peers, your coach, all these different things that pull your family, all these different things are pulling you, but you have to find time for yourself. So I really, really, really want you guys and ladies to really find time for yourself and just look up the word meditation. I mean, look it up. If you already know what it means, just try to figure out what that means for you. And really try to take advantage of that. I practice yoga. That's another thing that's been absolutely mind-blowing for me. So really try to invest in your body, eat well. Just really try to invest. You are your product. So invest in that. Put the best things that you need to do for you at that time and really invest in yourself, because if this is not what you want to do as a student athlete, again, this can also help you. And if it's not, find something different, but you still, at the end of the day, you have to find time to invest in yourself.
Awesome. Essence.
Yeah. And I would like to second that. I mean, just taking care of yourself, right? Taking care of your mind, your body, very, very important. One thing that we're talking about more as athletes is, mental health. So just as Avi said, find time for meditation, find time for self-care. All of that is important. It affects your game. Not only does it, give you that peace of mind and that clarity, you'll be surprised at your performance, right? So just finding time for a moment of mindfulness there. You know, we spend so much time stressing our bodies day in and day out. That's the life of elite athletes. That's the life of a warrior. You know, we've made stressing our bodies like our secondhand nature. So taking care of your mind, you need to do the same thing. And not only that, invest in yourself. You know, if there are, you know, other things that you're interested in, take some time, read up on them, study them. You know, it's okay to love more than one thing. It's okay to have several different passions. It's okay. I just encourage you all to be yourselves, take care of your minds, take care of your bodies, and just continue to be advocates of change.
Awesome. This has been so special. I am so grateful to you all for being here tonight. Thank you for, you know, I was trying to think what to say to thank you, but it's really thank you for your vulnerability and your continued leadership. And it really is a privilege to have this conversation with you. And you know, thank you for allowing me to be uncomfortable. So God bless you all, and back to Natalie.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to wrap this thing up. I have so many feelings, but mostly I am full of gratitude. You know, Kathleen stole my word, and that's you know, that's vulnerability, and I just see it as such a strength. And you know, I'm making a promise to you, Avi, in essence, that Oberlin College will not let this conversation and this work end. We are so much better because of the time and, you know, your stories that in your personal experiences that you've shared with us tonight. You know, as it's been said tonight, like these are human rights, you know, and there is no better time to be on the right side of humanity. And so it is with great love and respect for all of you that I show up every day. You know, and I vow and to lead this athletics department with my colleagues and student athletes and that are on this call, that we will, you know, we'll never shy away. We'll continue to walk towards our fear. We'll use our voice, and you know, we won't stand down, and we will be champions for change to make this world a better place for all of us. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Night all.
Okay.